This is Madison, Baumruk, and Patricia, Mata, and I wrote this thematic unit lesson plan for the Chronicles of Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe at Oral Roberts University. This lesson plan is for the subject of literature, and it should be taught to intermediate ELL students that are at the intermediate proficiency level who are in 7th grade. And the unit theme is morals in the Chronicles of Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. In this video, I will be going over the first lesson, which is chapters 1 through 5. So chapters 1 through 5 in this first lesson, the skills are reading, listening, and speaking, and the focus skill for this lesson is listening. The lesson theme is honesty, and this lesson should take about 40 to 60 minutes, and it can be delivered over a span of 2 days, and that can be adjusted as needed. These are the standards that we use to write this lesson plan. Students will actively listen and speak clearly using appropriate discussion rules with awareness and control of verbal and nonverbal cues. And the second standard is students will engage in collaborative discussions about appropriate topics in texts, expressing their own ideas clearly, building on the ideas of others in pairs, diverse groups, and whole class settings. The objectives that came from these standards are cognitive. The students will be able to accurately respond to the discussion questions and verbally express their interpretation of the moral theme of the read aloud text. The linguistic objective is the students will be able to actively listen to the teacher's story read aloud, then verbally respond to the discussion questions based on the story with accuracy and clarity. The socio-affective objective is the students will be able to engage in collaborative oral discussion based on the discussion questions and the moral themes of the read aloud text. Here are the materials that will be needed for this lesson: the student's own copy of the book, movie of the version of the book to show clips of, a computer and screen, whiteboard and marker, an English dictionary, and if available, hot chocolate and Turkish delight will add greatly to this lesson and can be served to the students at the end of the lesson because those are 2 foods that are relevant to the story. In each of the lessons in this unit, we're starting out by reviewing the chapters that the students read and then going over vocabulary. So introduce the lesson, tell the class what we will be learning, review the author C.S. Lewis in the background of World War II of the book, and ask who is the author and discuss the students' previous background knowledge of C.S. Lewis in this story. Then review chapters 1 through 4. Ask what the students remember in each chapter and summarize their reading. So you can do this kind of in a discussion form, prompting them with different questions for each chapter. If they don't know, then just go over these different summaries of the chapter and try to get them to remember what they read and talk about that and just let that flow from the discussion. Then you can go over the vocabulary words that students listed that they did not understand. First, have the students tell unfamiliar words, then discuss the definition in context before looking up the definition. You can use a physical or online dictionary and present it on the screen as needed. So basically, have a few students give some of the words that they learned and model for them how to look up those words after you've already discussed what the word might mean in context. Then you could show a short clip from the film that corresponds to the assigned reading. Part B is read aloud and listening assessment. Read aloud chapter 5 back on this side of the door, and then do the listening assessment by facilitating a discussion using the provided discussion questions as a guideline. And for the read aloud, you can also play it by ear, whether you want to read just part of chapter 5 and the rest for homework, or read the entire chapter. So I'm going to go to the listening assessment. So here is the rubric that if you need to formally grade how the students listened by their response to the questions, and here are the discussion questions. And if you're formally grading them, you should stick to these questions in order to keep track, or you could just use these questions as prompts to get a discussion started, just so that you can know if the students are listening and if they're really comprehending what they're learning, what they're hearing through listening. And so you can do yes if they responded to the question, somewhat responded, or no, they did not respond. And you can give them feedback immediately on that. The moral theme discussion is the next part. So the moral lesson discussion by pairs. So you're going to split them up into pairs, and in 2 minutes they have to come up with 1 to 3 sentences of what moral lesson they learned from chapter 5. After 2 minutes, each group will tell their 1 to 3 sentences to the class. And so at the end, we also have a rubric for that with instructions about how to give them points based on how they presented that in front of the class. And then during this discussion, so you'll use that rubric to formally assess their knowledge and interpretation of the moral theme and give them feedback as necessary. Then you will close the lesson by giving feedback on the lesson and activities until the students they're assigned to read chapters 6 through 9 continue listening to listing unfamiliar vocabulary words with their page numbers. Lastly, you can ask the students for their predictions of what will happen in chapters 6 through 9. So just use that to close up the lesson and summarize what you learned and what you did in order to set them up for the next lesson.